Hey friends, I just wanted to give a brief little something on the recent criticism of polyvagal theory in an article by a group of scientists who were really coming from the neurophysiological perspective and bringing some critique of polyvagal theory. It is um, a theory that I have used in my work, and that really influenced the creation of the Safe and Sound protocol, which I use in my work. And so, for anyone who has question marks about polyvagal theory in light of this recent article, I just wanted to share a bit of information. I did check in with Unite, the parent company of Safe and Sound Protocol, which was created by Dr. Porges, who also came up with polyvagal theory. They don't have an official thing they've put out. Dr. Porges did write an article in response to that original critique. I'm going to put that in the description, along with the original article, along with an article by Dr. Is she a doctor? Ariel Schwartz, um, who is a clinician who really uses polyvagal theory and has been very influential in the whole world with polyvagal theory. And I really like how she explains it versus actually the Dr. Porges article, because his is a little bit harder to understand for people who don't have a super sciencey background, as is the original critique. But she brings in some nice points. I am going to just show you sort of one main paragraph that I think is helpful from her article. And then I'm also going to link another article that is interesting as well. Hold on, I'm trying to see if I can move this box a little bit. Why does this keep? Okay, I can't. That's fine. Oh, I know what I can do. Just that. Okay, great. Um, so she talks about how the critique is really focusing on this respiratory sinus arrhythmia measurement that I guess Dr. Porges uses as a measure of central vagal outflow. I don't even know what central vagal outflow means, but it has to do with vagal nuclei. And they also challenge aspects of the evolutionary model that says, the oldest part functioning of the vagus nerve was dorsal. The next one was added sympathetic, and then most recently we added ventral. So maybe there's some question marks about that historical accuracy. And then also whether this RSA measurement can actually measure the vagal functioning, and if that actually relates to emotional experiences. So she gives this nice middle paragraph that, the clinical proposition of polyvagal theory is that autonomic state functions as an organizing platform, shaping perception, emotion, and relational behavior. So it's saying that our autonomic nervous system, which is that parasympathetic and sympathetic vagus nerve and sympathetic chain, if that autonomic nervous system, which is totally accepted by the science community, if that autonomic nervous system influences how we perceive things, what we think is happening, how we feel, and how we interact with others. So, does your nervous system state, if you're in fight, fight, freeze, fawn, or if you're feeling safe, does that influence the information that you perceive, how you feel, and how you interact with people? And, you know, I think all of us can say, I don't need science to show me that, right? Like, if I'm freaked out, then my perception is different. I know that, right? I feel different things when I'm freaked out, and I relate to other people differently. So, this thing that's so influential and so tangible in our day to day, like maybe it doesn't line up so neatly when you look at the brain and the nervous system and vagal nuclei. And for me, that's okay, right? Because what I'm worried about, not worried about, but what I'm interested in when I'm taking on concepts um, is it meaningful for me? Does it make my life more worth living? And for me, understanding that, like, I may hear somebody's tone as aggressive if I'm already in a scared space helps me to understand like relational confusions and conflicts and miscommunications. If I understand that, like, somebody else can't have a meaningful conversation and take accountability or consider multiple perspectives when they're scared, then I can take people off the hook for a lot of stuff, right? It reduces a lot of blame and shame for me. And that feels really important because blame and shame are one of the things that makes life most not worth living for most people. She sort of states, like, this doesn't empirically disprove polyvagal theory. It just says, like, your interpretation of physiological mechanisms and evolutionary framing may be different, right? So, um, it's not so much saying polyvagal theory is wrong. It's more saying uh, the way it describes physiological mechanisms and the way it understands that in terms of evolution may be a little off and or maybe off, right? And so when we are thinking about like how this plays into life versus how does it actually work in the body, Dr. Porges is very interested in, how this affects life. So I like how she says distinguishing between disagreement over mechanisms and refutation of core propositions is essential. So it's like, what are we focused on with polyvagal? Are we focused on the actual mechanism, or are we focused on how it plays out for people, how it can be clinically relevant, right? So, um, she says some nice things about how, like, there's ample research that stimulation of the vagus nerve has significant benefits on our mental and emotional health. Vagus nerve stimulation shows promising effects on reducing symptoms associated with epilepsy, migraines, rheumatoid arthritis, anxiety, and depression, right? That all of these ways that they're actually showing a shift in people's physical and mental health when they stimulate or support the vagus nerve um, is coming out in the research. So we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, basically, right? Like, we need to grow our understanding. What I would love to see it would be if Dr. Porges was like, thank you. Let's partner up. Let's do some research on the evolution. Let's make this more accurate. Like, let's explore. Tell me more. Like, let's figure it out. Let's rewrite this so that it reflects what we know. Same thing with RSA. Like, yeah, that maybe that's not a great measurement. What else could we measure? Like, questions for me are a jumping off point for creation. Refining what we have believed is something that I think makes life incredibly worth living, right? Questioning what we believe and then changing it to fit what's meaningful now. For me, right now, polyvagal theory makes life a little bit more worth living. Um, in 5 days, 5 years, 50 years, it may not, right? Right now, it's interesting for me. And I live a very take what you like, leave the rest kind of existence and encourage that for my clients and really anybody because. As one of my clients shared this morning, it's just an idea, right? This is just one idea. We have lots of ideas that get disproven or get changed to fit growing or changing information, access to changing information. We used to think, that thunder was because a god was like stomping around in heaven. Um, Currently, another one of my clients shared this amazing eel documentary with me. Currently, we don't know how eels reproduce. And fun fact, Freud studied eel reproduction for 2 years before becoming like transitioning to psychology. He was studying zoology and was in a little lab for 2 years dissecting eels to try to figure out how they reproduce. Couldn't figure it out. They still haven't figured it out. Eels magically appear all over the planet, and we don't know why. But does that make eels debunked? Like, oh, eels are debunked because we don't know why they're here or how they get here or how would they get more, right? No. So it means we don't know yet. And I'm gonna keep believing in eels, even though we don't know yet how they're here. And if something's useful in the day to day, but we don't understand it yet, or we can't explain it, or when we try to explain it, there's like disagreement over how we're explaining it, that's okay for me. Of course, whatever is meaningful for you is what I really value. So take what you like, leave the rest, even if that's the entire polyvagal theory. I'll put all the links to all those articles I mentioned in the description. And if you have other thoughts or information or things to share, please do so in the comments. Okay, lots of love.